here today with Dr. Kerry McInerney. Kerry, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great stuff. I said I hope I got your surname right, because I know you just briefly changed it because you're married, so hopefully that's pronounced correctly.
I did, yes, it's McInerney.
McInerney, so there we go. Listen, thanks for joining me today. So obviously ChatGPT is everywhere at the moment. Like, it seems to be the buzzword of the day. Where are we with AI? How much is it part of society, and how far have we got to go?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really fascinating to see so much hype at the moment around ChatGPT, because of course it's a really exciting technology. It's one we can see a lot of really practical applications of, but there's also so much hype and mystique and myth around AI. Like, I've seen a news article today that was saying this is the biggest invention since fire, to which I think, okay, but fire was quite a big invention. It was important for human societies. And so something that I'm really passionate about is trying to make sure that we talk about AI in ways that are accurate, that are measured, and that aren't overhyping AI's capabilities. Because otherwise I think we end up with people purchasing products and using products that maybe actually don't really work or aren't everything that we're saying that they should be.
So do the tech sector and the AI sector, do they kind of put themselves into a hole and actually kind of make us, as the general public, scared of AI, rather than actually getting us to embrace it by almost downplaying what it can achieve?
I think they do, because I think often coverage and marketing around AI can fall into these extremes where they say, oh, either AI is this kind of killer robot myth, it's something that's going to try and exterminate us all. There's a lot of Terminator imagery. This is something we see both in industry context and at kind of public discourse level. Or it can fall into this, wow, AI is like magic. It can do anything. Yeah. And, AI is an extension of a lot of computational tools that we already have. Yes, there's been some really exciting breakthroughs in the last few years in our ability to process larger and larger amounts of information. But I think when we oversell these products, we end up with certain kinds of snake oil products entering the market that actually aren't going to solve the problems that they claim they could solve.
And so for you obviously work in kind of the field of AI as currently in the hiring sector or recruitment sector. What's the purpose of it? Where are we with it? And what's the interaction with it, in your view, of AI and kind of the traditional interview or the traditional recruitment process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a real hodgepodge of interests, and one of the things I do a lot is I work with my colleague Eleanor on hiring tech, and particularly the use of AI for recruitment, and particularly video interview tools, which probably, as you can tell from how we're talking right now, it's just become a much bigger part of our lives, particularly tech. And so on the one hand, these AI-powered tools, platforms like HireVue are really, really helpful for recruiters because of the challenges of distance, because of the challenges around volume recruitment. So if you're hiring and you're going through like 20,000 CVs, understandably, you probably do need some automated help with that. But on the other hand, I'm also a little bit skeptical about some of the claims that companies are making about their products. And so for me personally, my area of research is around gender, race, and AI. I'm quite interested and concerned by products that claim that they can de-bias hiring, because that's an outcome we all want. We know that hiring can often be very biased and unfair, but I'm a bit skeptical about the claims that technologies can inherently do this for us.
Okay, so kind of probably fascinating, but generally, from my perspective, you've given talks in the past about anti-Asian racism, black feminism, diversity, inclusion, especially in the tech sector. And it's something that's been talked about a lot, STEM, and where we are with that. How is the world progressing? How are we doing with kind of the tech industry balancing up and actually having greater diversity within it?
I think it's a really mixed bag. On the one hand, I think we're seeing really fantastic worker mobilization within the tech industry, things like the Google walkout against discrimination and sexual violence and assault, and a lot of mobilization against the use of these products for military purposes. And I find that really, really encouraging. And there's fantastic groups like Queer and AI and Black and AI, organized by people within the tech industry who are actively trying to transform their industry and make it a more inclusive and hospitable place. But at the same time, I think, unfortunately, sometimes people like to sell this narrative about the tech industry that things are getting a lot better, when in reality, unfortunately, I think we're still facing a lot of the same structural problems. So, for example, women are still really placed in these very unequal positions in the workforce. They are hugely underrepresented. And in the UK context, at least, the number of female computer science graduates, I think, or women in the tech industry is actually decreasing over time, not increasing. And that really worries me.
And do you put that down to anything specific, or kind of? Yeah, I think I can stop there. Do you put it down to anything specific?
I think it's just such a complex problem. There's so many interlocking factors, from forms of pay discrimination, the work hours and work cultures of different places. Something that I'm particularly interested in is how gender and racial stereotypes play into that. So myself and some colleagues here have been working on how the AI scientist is portrayed in popular films, and thinking about how do these ideas of like who counts as an AI scientist, who gets portrayed on screen, affects then maybe people's career perceptions or the extent to which they can see themselves fitting into an environment. I think, we need like a mixture of these very big structural interventions and these small day-to-day kinds of little bits and pieces to be changing all at the same time to bring about such a big change.
Can I ask, how do you balance up for yourself, kind of obviously your career against, I hesitate to use the word, the campaigning and the profile and kind of making change, kind of in your head, how do you balance up those two very different, but obviously both important streams of your life?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, because I think one of the challenges is between fast and slow change and what levels of intervention you want to be making. I think I come from a kind of politics and policy background, or that's what I'm mainly working in now. And so that's very targeted at these like high level interventions, these more regulatory kinds of interventions. But at the same time, sometimes when you're working with industry, you're asking for changes very much at the ground level, things that can feel very small, that can not feel very impactful maybe in the moment, but maybe they'll grow into a bigger and bigger cultural change. And so I definitely really struggle with that, though, trying to figure out, is my work really going to be making a difference? And maybe see those changes happening.
So do you feel optimistic or are you pessimistic at the moment?
Oh, that's a good question. It fluctuates, to be honest. I could say I feel really, really optimistic all the time. It really fluctuates. I think the thing that encourages me the most is the way that people, I think, are so much more aware of forms of algorithmic injustice, about how different kinds of algorithms might be shaping the contours of their lives, how they're voting, the kind of information they're getting. I think compared to 5 years ago, people are just much more aware. And particularly younger folks, we saw huge protests here in the UK around the A-level algorithm. There's a phenomenal activist called Sneha Ravana who's just entered university, I think, but started in high school, an organization called Encode Justice in the US, which has been really successful in campaigning and overturning laws around the use of AI for things like in the criminal justice system in California. So those things make me really excited about this kind of new like Gen Z generation of ethical engineers. At the same time, though, it can feel a little bit like 3 steps forward, like 5 steps backwards. I think the firing of like Tamika Brew and Margaret Mitchell from Google in 2020 really felt like a big step backwards moment, because it felt like, how invested are these firms in like really bringing about these ethical policies and bringing in these guidelines. So it fluctuates day to day.
And listen, and on that level of uncertainty, which we all have to embrace, Kerry, thanks so much for your time. It's been great speaking as always.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant.